The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed.
A 5-minute split call, the Honourable Deborah Russell.
Mr Speaker, I want to quote a speaker from the third reading of the Equal Pay Amendment Bill back in 2020. Quote, "I'm proud to stand in this House tonight and say that National will support this final reading of the Equal Pay Amendment Bill. And I'm proud that our party has contributed to crafting this legislation and bringing it to the House. We support the simple concept that people should be paid the same for the same work, regardless of their gender. And we support the equally important concept that if someone has been doing work and there are reasonable grounds to believe that that work has been historically undervalued based on their gender and has been underpaid because of that, they should be able to make a pay equity claim. So we support this bill." Nicolas Willis, speaking in the House. Where is she today? A few years ago. Where is she? Hiding. So, why the change? Why the change? So, at this point, coming into the House today, the Prime Minister said, and it's quoted in Radio New Zealand, that this change that the National Party and their minions are putting through will save billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. But if we go to the Cabinet paper which has been released, and we can have a look at it now, something that has been redacted is all the final recommendations, the financial recommendations, all the information about the finances. They're not telling us how much this is going to save. Because I tell you who it's not going to save money for. It is not going to save money for the aged care workers who desperately need every penny they can get at the moment. It's not going to save money for teachers who have a pay equity claim in there at the moment and have been historically underpaid. Those teachers are losing money because of that. It is not going to save money for teacher aides, people we need in our classrooms to help with looking after especially children with extra learning needs. It's not going to save money for cleaners, also underpaid in the long term. And all these jobs, Mr Speaker, jobs historically done by women. That government really does not care about women workers, and it does not care about low-paid workers. All it cares about is balancing the budget, and it is doing it in a way that kicks the lowest paid women in this country. That is appalling. It is an absolutely appalling thing to do to our workers. Mr Speaker, in terms of thinking about this speech today, I recalled Professor Judy McGregor. Now, Judy McGregor was our first Equal Employment Opportunities Commissioner. And one of the things that she did was that she went undercover as an aged care worker to find out what the work was really like. And let me quote what she said. She produced an amazing report, Caring Counts, which really led the charge for pay equity. But she said, in terms of aged care, "When I did the job myself, I realised the immense emotional labour that goes into it, the skill, the technique, the fatigue." She recognised just how hard that job was. And at about the same time, Christine Bartlett, with the aid of her union A2, took a pay equity case. Today, Christine Bartlett is nearly crying, and she said, "What's going to happen to these low-paid workers? It's hurting, it's really hurting." These are people who are ignoring the evidence and ignoring the evidence just in order to balance the books. Now, the previous speaker said that the National Party had, in the previous debate on this, supported the pay equity legislation. It had some rules, and one of the things was that it had to be sustainable in the long term. That's the exact words used by the previous speaker. Sustainable for who? That's the question. Sustainable for who? We already know that working families in this country are having to go to the food bank to get assistance because wages are simply not high enough. We already know that 30% of New Zealanders had to get food assistance last year. And yet this government is turning around and taking away one of the key protections for low-paid workers. What an absolute shame.
Just before I call the next speaker, just the comments about members not being here, I'll take that was a metaphorical question about absence. However, some of the comments from the sidelines were not so metaphorical. So just a reminder with subsequent speakers about that rule. 5 minutes split call, the Honourable Ginny Andersen.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I think we've had the debate so far has highlighted the fact that the main speakers on the government side are Carl Bates and Cameron Brewer, those long-time proponents of women's rights and equal pay. And now we have Rima Nicolas, who doesn't even understand what the basis of pay equity is. And I think that reflects the bill that we are debating right now. The bill that has no regulatory impact statement. For a party act who is all over regulatory and trying to have some, what is the change that we are trying to do to make sure we have clear understandings of why we are changing the law and the impact that this will have, to know that it's valued. There is no regulatory impact statement to understand what this bill will do in New Zealand. And in the actual official documents, the entire section on human rights has been withheld. We'll be challenging that because I reckon the New Zealand public would really like to know what the human rights implications are for this bill, because we know on this side of the House that it detrimentally impacts women in the lowest paid jobs. And we have a government that has the gall to say that they are going for growth, that they are actually putting more money in New Zealanders' pockets, when the truth is, Mr Speaker, they are taking it out of the most vulnerable, lowest paid workers in New Zealand. Those people who work long hours in carer roles, in administrative roles, in cleaning roles, those areas that get paid the least. Because this government is quite happy for them to clean their toilets and clean their floors and do all their dirty work, but they're not prepared to pay them what they're worth. And that is going to come back and bite this government at the next election. Because there is one thing that women are good at, and that's being unified. And all women in New Zealand are going to sit up and pay attention as to what the underhand business this government is doing today. Under urgency, with no regulatory impact statement, withholding information on what it's doing to the Bill of Rights, and no select committee process. No ability for New Zealanders to comment on taking away pay equity claims in New Zealand. 33 active pay equity claims are being written off with this bill in the House tonight, with no course of any woman, any person in New Zealand being able to have a say on that. And those members opposite, particularly those women who have let other men step forward and try and argue that this is more robust, that this is going to provide more clarity, we're all suddenly going to be a hell of a lot better off with this great new invention that you've tabled at the last minute with no select committee process. Somehow this will give us the certainty that will drive us forward as a nation and make us more productive by paying women less and holding them back. The very women that we rely upon to make our country work, to make sure our children are looked after, to make sure there's food on the table, to make sure they have shoes when they go to school. Those are the women who put every last penny into making sure we have a country who cares. And this sad, miserly, selfish government will take the money out of the pockets of the women that keep our country working, that keep our country ticking over. And I too, if I was sitting on that side of the House, I would put up Carl Bates and Cameron Brewer, because I would be too ashamed to stand up and speak to such a disgraceful bill. There is no way this government has the ability to stand up and say they are going for growth. that they are interested in productivity and that they are putting more money in the pockets of New Zealanders, when the blatant truth today, Mr. Speaker, is they are doing the exact opposite. They are looking to those who earn the very least, and they are making their lives harder. And in the same breath, they are lining the pockets of their rich mates. It is a sad day in New Zealand, Mr. Speaker, when we see you taking from those who work hard, who do not have enough to pay for bills, and you turn around and have a budget that will reward those and find money where they could not account for it themselves. I do not commend this bill to the House, and it is a sad day in New Zealand for women's rights.